Toothless, Scene 3, The Cave. Part 1, 10 of Clubs. 3 upgrade points awarded. The dentist's hiss lingered and became one with the dark silence. In that silence, time became lost, and the 4 companions were equally adrift in their respective thoughts. "Thank you, friend." Bizarria's whispered gratitude to the stranger broke the hold on time and silence. Curly grunted derisively as he shoved Franklin off himself and stood. "What the hell, man?" Franklin blurted out. "This wasn't supposed to hurt." "I don't know," the mortician slurred. Despite the tunnel being dark, there was still enough light to see Albrecht pointing to his cheek. "Not what I was expecting either." "So you battled one of your nightmares?" asked Bizarria. "I wouldn't call that a battle." Albrecht garbled as he stood, stiff with pain. "Well, at least we got some more upgrade points." There was no excitement in Bez's voice. "Speaking of..." Albrecht sat back down in aggravated pain and frustration. "We only got 3 upgrade points? After all that?" "We didn't kill the boss," Curly said dryly. "We didn't even damage it." "Well, that's true." Albrecht sat and thought a moment longer, then voiced the next thing that came to mind. "What's with you shooting at my head?" "I was aiming for his hand," Curly answered, raising a hooked finger. "The hook was in my mouth." "If I'd shot the hook that was holding you, then he'd let you go." "Yeah, and if you'd missed, you would have killed me." "Well, I didn't kill you, owl hoot." "What is a freaking owl hoot?" Albrecht lashed out, but the pain quickly calmed him back down. "Why do you call me this?" "What?" Curly shrugged with indifference. "I don't know your name. I logged in late, remember?" Bizarria blinked a few times and looked at Curly's silhouette. The tunnel was dark and humid, much like the sewers, except there was no sewage underfoot, and the smell wasn't as bad, but not much better. An occasional drip could be heard echoing from a distant light. Perhaps it was due to the dark and dank conditions, but Curly's tag would not materialize over his head, despite Bizarria's concentrated effort. "What is your name?" The Magi was genuine in her query. "My name's Curly, ma'am. Curly Patches." His chest puffed with pride as he accentuated his southern drawl. "Bizarria, the Magi," she said softly. "I'm Franklin, and that's Albrecht over there." With some effort, Albrecht got up to examine the door. He did not acknowledge the others. "Pleasure to formally meet y'all," Curly replied with the tip of his hat. "Now, can someone please tell me what is going on? Y'all were walking through my park after hours, messing up my park. Then I had to rescue you, and now some weird, ghouly dentist guy is chasing us. What is going on here?" "You still want to play?" A tinge of contempt punctuated Franklin's question. "You want to be this character?" "Hell yeah," Curly answered enthusiastically. "So what if it hurts a little? Let's see this thing through." Metal faintly tapped against the heavy door. "It knows we are still here." Albrecht spoke in a painfully hushed voice, his hand against the door. "We'd better go." The tunnel was long and straight with a small dim blue light at the end. The distance was difficult to gauge, but the darkness made the soft blue light look far away. Regardless, there did not appear to be any other direction for the party to go. Albrecht took a few paces toward the light, separating himself from the others, then paused. "I thought everyone had left me." The mortician's accent wavered as he spoke solemnly, with his back to the group. "I'm sorry about that," Bizarria replied. "That thing was too close, and I was afraid it would get me before I had a chance to do anything. I needed to get some distance before attempting to strike." Albrecht looked back at the group as Bizarria approached. "I'm in your debt," the Magi softly assured. "I'm going to see this thing through with you." "Yeah, gummy bear." Curly chimed in. Like it or not, you're stuck with us. Franklin kicked the ground before looking up at Albrecht's silhouette. He felt their eyes meet for a moment, and Franklin nodded with assurance. Albrecht smiled, wincing a little from the pain of the expression. When he spoke, the tone of his voice changed to something unique, warm, and unfamiliar. Well, maybe there's something more to us than expected. The mortician returned to character as he turned back to the blue light and began to trek through the tunnel. I guess I should begin telling my story for Mr. Curly Patches. His speech was still very muddled as he attempted to talk while holding the hole in his cheek. Hold on, Franklin interjected. Albrecht paused as the doctor reached into his forensic kit and pulled out a small pen flashlight. Hold this, the doctor said, handing the penlight to Curly. Shine where I'm looking. Curly curiously complied, and with the help of the penlight, Franklin proceeded to pull out alcohol wipes and proline with a J-hook needle attached. I didn't know you had all that, Albrecht murmured quietly to Franklin. Neither did I. Franklin's tone was grave. Now, sit down, hold still, and quit talking. The distant, subtle drip echoed down the tunnel as the doctor knotted the final stitch. Grabbing the penlight back from Curly, the doctor examined his work with mild satisfaction. Don't talk too much. If you do, I'll stitch your mouth closed. Can you understand me? Albrecht asked excitedly. He moved his mouth in circles, then opened and closed it while holding the patched cheek with one hand. Yeah, little gummy, the cowboy answered. Loud and clear. Excellent. Fully back in character now, accent unwavering, he walked with elated steps towards the blue light. My name is Albrecht Eisenberger. Okay, I got that, Curly grinned. Gumdrops for short. No, my name is Albrecht. Uh-huh. I have done some bad things. I'm not the overly superstitious type, but I do know what I see. We are being haunted, and we are after whoever has stolen my teeth. It appears that in our journey to get my teeth returned to their rightful position, we have come across some evil that is against me. Do you understand? It appears that the evil forces want to kill me and everyone with me, which means you, too. Curly grunted. Sorry. The security guard stared ahead and grumbled about his current conflict of duties regarding the protection of the park. Albrecht continued. We went to the park because we found some spectral evidence that would suggest... Against the doctor's advice, Albrecht did not stop talking as he led the party further into the tunnel. He explained how each person played an important part in this story. The mortician was exaggerating their plight and rambling on about superfluous details. Bizarria grew tired of waiting to see if the security cowboy would punch the mortician. She soon became lost in a memory that often haunted her waking dreams. It was the memory of the night that brought her to him. Memory can be a strange thing. It changes with perspective and time. They say when enough time has passed, the only thing that remains from memory is the emotion. However, the details of this memory were branded into the Magi's mind, and it regularly resurfaced when her thoughts were not otherwise occupied. She remembered that evening started as a good one. Bizarria the Magi, the spectacle of wonder and amazement, had just finished one of her circus performances with tremendous cheers and applause. She performed her signature vanishing act, pulled all manner of magical novelties out of her hat, and every throwing knife had hit its target. She was on fire. Not literally. That act was still a work in progress. And the crowd stood, raining down their ovation. The idea of lighting herself on fire for a future show was something she happily considered as she exited the main circus tent. Unfortunately, that idea died soon after. Bizarria did not remember how or why she was behind that small tent near the edge of the circus. She only remembered that she was alone, with the body, under a star-filled sky. The body was lying just outside the tent, in the tall grass. It had an uncanny naturalness. It was one of the stagehands who was always working in the background. He was never meant for the spotlight, but he was essential for those who demanded an audience. Bez recalled they had many brief passing encounters, and he was always warm and friendly, a stark contrast to the cold lifelessness in front of her. He was a good, hard-working young man, and he certainly did not deserve this fate. This wasn't the first body mysteriously found in her circus. However, this was the first deceased body Bizarria had ever encountered. It was a sight that caused her head to spin and her stomach to twist in violent knots. The world spun around her, forcing the Magi to grab a stack of crates nearby and keep herself upright. Upon gathering her wits, her first thoughts turned to her circus family. The circus barely survived day by day, and another body would almost certainly bring ruin for everyone. She couldn't let anyone find him and was determined to bury this secret. The circus ringmaster. He was a showman in the spotlight and a devil in the shadows. He understood the workings of deeds done in the dark, things Bizarria would rather not have knowledge of. The Magi knew he would be able to fix this. The ringmaster did not fail. Bizarria was directed to a mortician who could handle the task. The mortician's name was Albrecht Eisenberger. Mr. Eisenberger was well versed in handling the effects of those who had passed beyond their mortal shells. He had various connections and contacts to help ensure that these things were handled properly. Dignity was mandatory when dealing with the dead, he would declare, regardless of how their bodies would eventually be dealt with. She felt there was a certain irony to it all. The young, dead man was cleaned thoroughly, dressed, and then cremated. His ashes were taken to a lake on the city's outskirts. There, the remnants were released upon the cool midnight breeze. Yet, even as the ashes emptied from their plastic bag, Bizarria felt a weight steadily fill her soul. The mortician's incessant chatter caused that weight to twist in further discomfort, but it dropped hard and sunk deep when he stated that she was now indebted to him. Bizarria cursed the ringmaster for sending her to this despicable little man, and cursed herself for encountering the dead.
Wait. We're searching for a toothbrush? Curly asked suddenly. I thought we were searching for your actual teeth.
Curly's interruption of the old man's droning forced Bizarria out of her beleaguered reflections and back into the present.
Oh, man, that was supposed to be a surprise.
Franklin groaned from the rear.
Sorry,
Albrecht sheepishly shrugged.
I forgot, but yeah, we are searching for my family's toothbrush, a vital tool used to help the dead pass on to the next realm.
Well, that's enough jaw-jacking for now. Curly spoke curtly, ceasing Albrecht's attempt to ramble further.
I've decided to help you. Thank you.
The mortician squinted as he looked forward.
We are obviously in need of that. Yeah, well, you're lucky you need help right now. I have a sworn duty to my park and should be there.
The once distant echo of dripping water now surrounded them as each individual exited the tunnel and observed their surroundings. Observation roll. Albrecht, intelligence. 3. Success. The tunnel had led everyone into a large cave. The walls were rough and jagged chunks of stone. Smooth, narrow rivulets ran down various points of the walls, creating shapes of rough rock bordered by thin lines of water. Pointed, conical rock formations were scattered throughout the floor and ceiling, and water dripped from stalactite to stalagmite. It felt like they had stepped into the cavernous mouth of a great rock beast, and it was ready to clamp down at any moment. The cave carried the stale stench of mold and decay. However, standing tall in the center of the cave floor was a clean stone statue, with arms bent at the elbows and both hands held out together in front, palms open.
Well, I guess this kind of makes sense,
Albrecht mused as he looked at their new surroundings.
We walked through a tunnel and ended up in a cave.
None of this makes sense. Franklin closed his eyes and slowly rubbed his temples, vainly working out his frustrations. Observation roll. Bizarria, dexterity. 4. Success. Bizarria, still shaken by her memories, quickly identified various positions that would help protect her from the hidden threats of the cavernous maw. Many stalagmites were large enough for Bez to hide behind. She immediately took cover behind the closest one. Observation roll. Curly, perception. 2. Success. Curly sniffed loud and long, then momentarily held the air in his lungs. His mustache swished from one side of his face to the other. Then he slowly breathed out and peered across the cave. The cowboy kept one hand on his hat and the other on his pistol as he carefully stepped toward a large rock. While moving, he heard the high-pitched clicks and chirps of bats deep in the cave. He noted that only the stony spike tips could be seen above. The ceiling itself was bathed in deep shadow, leaving any manner of unknown horrors to hide within its darkness. Franklin stepped away from Albrecht and followed Curly to the stone outcropping. "Hey," Franklin whispered when he was a few paces away from Curly. "Just so you know, Albrecht hasn't had teeth for years." The cowboy shook his head in response. He pulled a slightly dirty cloth from his back pants pocket and unholstered one of his six-shooters. Curly leaned back against the boulder and proceeded to clean his handgun, blatantly ignoring the drama of those around him. Observation roll. Franklin, forensics. 2. Success. "Did you hear that?" Franklin asked. "It sounds like stones grinding." Curly did not respond, but continued to clean his revolver. Albrecht had paused when he exited the tunnel. While the rest of the group walked past him, the mortician scanned the immediate area for something nearby. His skin pulled at something on the edge of his thoughts, an object that beckoned. The skin guided him along the cave wall, helping him to find the object just a couple of meters from the tunnel exit. Albrecht beamed when he realized he had found a paramedic bag. Flabbergasted, the mortician quickly grabbed it for closer inspection. The bag itself was well used, but the contents were fresh enough to patch up 3 people. At least, that is what the mortician surmised. Turning it over, a symbol and name were stitched on the bag, the same symbol from the EMT's uniform. Albrecht clutched the bag close, shaking his head over the memory of the stranger's sacrifice, and caught up with the rest of his group. The cave held a dim blue light that was bright enough for Albrecht to see where everyone was located. The mortician noted Franklin and Curly were hunkered down behind some rock, while Bizarria the Magi had her back pressed hard against the stalagmite to the other side of the cave. Albrecht walked to Bizarria first. As he approached, it became apparent that she was still injured and needed medical attention. The mortician stopped, then turned and waved his arms overhead to gain Franklin's attention. It took a moment before the medical examiner looked toward him. "Have you helped heal Bez yet?" Albrecht raised the aid bag high, pointing at it with his other hand. No, I don't think I got around to her." Albrecht turned back to Bez and leaned in close. "It looks like you are bleeding pretty bad, my dear." "Yup," the Magi replied with a chuckle that contained a passive mixture of apprehension and rage. But she did not look at the mortician. "It's all your fault. I blame you." Albrecht leaned back and shuffled his feet. He looked around the cave before addressing Bizarria again. "Well, that bite is from the gremlin, so technically it's the monster's fault." Bizarria stood up, rage increasing, boiling over the apprehension. She stammered with anger. "I've gone through ghosts for you. I've been ravaged by gremlins because of you. I don't even want to know what's next from you." "I mean, you did ask for it," Franklin chimed in as he approached Bez and Albrecht. "I never should have given you that body." She turned away and crouched back down, focusing on a distant stalagmite. "Now, I took care of that body, Bizarria." Albrecht's tone was stern and straightforward, a reminder their business transaction was not yet complete. "Your circus family secrets are safe." The Magi took a deep, sharp breath, then let it out slowly and forcefully. "This has all been a circus, for the circus." Calm yourself. Albrecht was less stern now. "We can give Franklin these medical supplies, and he can help mend your wounds." The old man stood silent for a moment, holding the medic bag close to his chest with both hands. The Magi continued to look deep into the cave, purposefully keeping the mortician out of her sight. Albrecht awkwardly shuffled away and leaned over to Franklin, who was a comfortable distance from the Magi. "I have medical supplies," Albrecht said quietly, handing the bag to Franklin. "I believe they are from the medical person back there. Bizarria's head is still bleeding profusely from the injuries inflicted by the gremlins. Maybe you could use this to help her? Yeah, I could probably swing that. Franklin gave the mortician a sideways glance as he casually took the EMT's kit from the old man's hands. Albrecht smiled as wide and gracious as his face would allow, then stepped away from the two companions. Franklin stared at the bag for a moment, recalling the short yet pivotal time spent with the EMT. He flipped the bag over, then flipped it over again. Despite being slammed into a door, the fellow still closed it and sacrificed himself to save everyone else. Franklin did not understand what that meant, but felt it was significant. Interesting, Franklin muttered to himself. That was the best word he could think of that described the whole scene they had come from. Interesting. He slung the bag over his shoulder and approached the Magi. Okay. Franklin knelt next to Bez. So, Albie just gave me some supplies and said you needed some help. I may or may not be able to help. Awesome, Bez sniggered. If you'll just stop the bleeding, that'll be fine. The doctor gave her a thumbs up. Copy that. Franklin began rummaging through the bag and utilizing the supplies necessary for mending Bizarria's wounds.